Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the TNT review series 329.85, otherwise known as a few days before WrestleMania 1, is our next episode. Like, subscribe, comment below if you're interested in what we're doing around here. Hoping to have literally the largest audio archive of wrestling reviews available on YouTube within the next few years, but we need your support to be able to do that. We also want to be able to help people out with the COVID stuff, recovery and likes, and the way to do that would be to have the ability to talk, to get to 1,000 subscribers. So we need to get there, and we need your help to do that. So like, subscribe, comment below, all that good stuff. Anyway, this is the final TNT before WrestleMania. Literally, what? This is the 29th, so we're talking 30, 31. We're talking a day or two before. Yeah, because it's on the 31st, so really short. This won't be a very long review because a lot of this is just, for lack of a better term, it's hype value, and it should be to this point the largest pro wrestling card in Madison Square Garden history, perhaps. Certainly, without it, things like closed circuit and later pay per view wouldn't exist. Certainly, without it, the WWF may not exist in its current incarnation of being the WWE. Anyway, we see a Piper's Pit with Mr. T on the set of the A Team. Obviously, this is rather iconic. No real major quotes from this. There's also a Piper's Pit from Madison Square Garden. Really, these are very simplistic because T has to be led through the process, and really it's more, hey, here we come. We're gonna lay you out. I'm a fighter, Piper. You're a wimp. It's really basic stuff. At the same time, if you haven't seen it before, I actually found this to be, for the final go home show, I found this to be relatively, I don't want to say weak, but underwhelming. I don't think they did enough to focus on the whole card. I think they did a lot to focus on the main event, and if you were in for that show or in for that match, good for you. If you weren't, though, uh, it's unfortunate because that's what this whole show was. I mean, which is actually going to make my review relatively short. I mean, they have the Piper's Pit on the A Team set. Piper gets basically run off. He's running his mouth pretty good, but T looks strong there. Then you've got Piper's Pit, I believe, in Madison Square Garden, right before the WrestleMania show takes place. Um, you know, he hangs out there. Hogan runs out, and they do a ring clearing brawl. Then you got Mean Gene Okerlund interviewing Billy Martin. Billy Martin, of course, the manager of the Yankees at the time, and he talks about that. He talks about wanting to be part of WrestleMania, wanting to see it. I mean, it's a very mundane interview. Um, Interview with Liberace, who's was big at the time, artistically speaking, and he's talking about all the celebrities that are going to be there, how big this is, and if you frame of reference it, I'm sure this was a good hype program by 1985 standards. But 35 years later, this is a, how to put, this is a very difficult program to watch. Not because it's a bad program, but because it's kind of like one of those, hey, this didn't hold up over time. It really didn't. And so then we move on to, let's see, what's the final segment. I mean, that's how quick it went by. This whole program was hyped around the main event, and I get it. Your main event's what sells your program for 80% of your viewers, but for the 20% who might have cared about the women's match, or for the 20% that cared about seeing Andre's last match, for the 20% that cared about maybe the tag title match, or the Intercontinental title match, or the whole card as a whole, as a complete package, they did a really not so great go home show job here in that regard. Then we see Mr. T and Hulk Hogan running through the streets of New York City. I mean, that's kind of cool as a visual. It gets them pumped, it gets them hyped, it gets them ready. But overall, I mean, this very rarely do I say a whole version of TNT is skippable. But if you want to see it for final hype, that's great. But other than that, this is a skippable program in the sense that if you don't care about final hype, if you're already sold on WrestleMania 1, or if you weren't that impressed with WrestleMania 1 as a whole, then this is not a program that you're going to go out of your way to see. And believe it or not, TNT slows down a bit after this. In other words, they build, they build, they build. The show is very good for at least 2 months leading up to Mania, and then there's a drop off in the content. I think because it's kind of like you build up to this major show, and then you don't know what to do from there. You're just kind of confused. You're kind of confuzzled, and that can be kind of difficult. But so the reviews for at least April and May, there's good stuff coming up as we get towards the summer. But the reviews for at least the next month to 2 months are going to be lackluster in comparison. So it's an interesting ride. But in any event, that is the review for the final show before WrestleMania 1. They do show bits and pieces of WrestleMania over the weeks to follow. So obviously, when I do a more in-depth WrestleMania review, which is, if that's something you'd like, if there's a pay-per-view, a certain pay-per-view you'd like reviewed either in any of the major companies over the last 35 years, please feel free to ask for that. I'd love to do a pay-per-view series. It's just I've seen every pay-per-view, so to me it's not the same to review it with the same fervor. But if somebody would like that, I'd be more than willing to do it. In any event, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.